The black belt snapped in half with a sound like gunfire. Steven Seagal bowed to the audience as they applauded. But in the back row, Muhammad Ali wasn't clapping. He was watching. And when the demonstration ended, Ali stood up slowly, his hands trembling slightly from Parkinson's, and said three words that made every martial artist in the Beverly Hills dojo go silent. Show me something. What happened in the next 5 minutes didn't just humble Hollywood's biggest action star. It revealed a truth about strength, fear, and the difference between performing power and possessing it. And the secret Steven Seagal confessed to Ali afterward would explain why he'd spent his entire career trying to convince the world he was something he wasn't. It was March 1988, and the exclusive martial arts demonstration at Master Chen's dojo in Beverly Hills was the hottest invitation in Hollywood. Steven Seagal was at the peak of his fame. Above the Law had just made him a household name, and his Aikido demonstrations were drawing crowds of celebrities eager to witness what magazines called the deadliest man in Hollywood. The dojo was packed with A-listers. James Brown sat in the front row, having driven over with his old friend Muhammad Ali. At 46, Ali's boxing career was 7 years behind him, but Parkinson's disease was beginning to show its effects. His hands trembled slightly, and his once booming voice had grown softer. Master Chen, a 70-year-old traditionalist who had taught martial arts for 5 decades, introduced Seagal with obvious reluctance. Chen believed in the spiritual discipline of martial arts, not Hollywood spectacle, but Seagal's celebrity brought attention to the dojo. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen announced, "Steven Seagal will demonstrate the practical application of Aikido." For the next 20 minutes, Seagal put on a show. He broke boards with his bare hands, threw volunteers across the mat, and moved with the fluid precision that had made him famous. His ponytail whipped dramatically as he executed throws and holds that looked devastating. "The key to Aikido," Seagal explained to his captivated audience, "is using an opponent's energy against them. Size doesn't matter. Strength doesn't matter. What matters is understanding the physics of combat." He gestured to a wooden dummy. "This represents any opponent, no matter how large or powerful." With a swift motion, he struck the dummy in 3 places, explaining how each blow would incapacitate a real attacker. "Real fighting isn't like boxing," Seagal continued, glancing toward where Ali sat. "Boxing is sport. What I teach is combat reality. This is how you stop a man in seconds." That's when Muhammad Ali stood up. The room fell silent. Every head turned as the former heavyweight champion rose from his chair, his movement deliberate despite the tremor in his hands. "Excuse me," Ali said, his voice quiet but carrying clearly across the dojo. "Did you say boxing isn't real?" "Fighting?" Seagal's confident smile flickered. "Mr. Ali, with all due respect, sport boxing and street combat are completely different animals." Ali nodded thoughtfully and began walking toward the demonstration area. "You're probably right. I never learned how to fight in the street." A nervous laugh rippled through the audience. Master Chen stepped forward, sensing tension. "Perhaps we should," Chen began. "Show me something," Ali interrupted, his eyes fixed on Seagal. "I'm sorry? You said size doesn't matter. Strength doesn't matter. Show me something real." Seagal straightened to his full height, 6'4", and powerfully built. Even with Parkinson's affecting Ali's movement, the former champion still carried himself with unmistakable presence. "Mr. Ali, I don't think this is appropriate." "Hit me," Ali said simply. The dojo went dead silent. "What?" "Hit me, one time. Your best shot." Ali's voice remained calm, conversational. "If what you're teaching is real combat and boxing is just sport, then this should be easy for you." James Brown started to stand up. "Muhammad, maybe we should—" Ali held up his hand. 3 seconds, Stephen. You have 3 seconds to put me on the ground. If you can do that, then I'll tell everyone here that your way is better than boxing." Seagal looked around the room. Every eye was on him. His reputation, his credibility, everything he'd built his career on hung in the balance. He couldn't back down in front of Hollywood's elite without looking like a fraud. "Mr. Ali, I respect you tremendously, but you're not well, and I don't want to hurt—" 3 seconds, Ali repeated. "Starting now." What happened next lasted exactly as long as Ali had promised. Seagal launched forward with a textbook Aikido attack, grabbing for Ali's wrist to execute a throw he'd performed thousands of times. But Ali's hands weren't where Seagal expected them to be. Despite the tremor from Parkinson's, Ali's reflexes kicked in with muscle memory built over decades. Ali slipped the grab with a subtle shoulder movement, stepped inside Seagal's reach, and placed his left hand gently on Seagal's chest. It wasn't a punch. It wasn't a push. It was just placement, but the effect was immediate. Seagal found himself off balance, his own forward momentum working against him. As he tried to recover, Ali's right hand caught his wrist, not to throw him, but to control him. In that instant, Seagal realized he couldn't breathe properly. Ali's positioning had somehow affected his breathing without any visible violence. "Time," Ali said quietly, stepping back. Seagal gasped, stumbling slightly, as he tried to regain his composure. The entire exchange had lasted exactly 3 seconds, but in those seconds, everyone in the room had witnessed something that contradicted everything they'd just been told about combat. "How did you?" Seagal began, his face flushed with embarrassment and confusion. Ali didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the room at the stunned faces, then back at Seagal. "Can I ask you something, Stephen?" Ali's voice was gentle, without a trace of mockery. Seagal nodded, still catching his breath. "How old were you when you started martial arts?" The question seemed to come from nowhere. 14. Why? Were you being picked on?" Seagal's face went pale. It was as if Ali had looked directly into his soul. "I don't see what that has to do with—" "Because I was 12 when I started boxing," Ali continued. "And I started because someone stole my bicycle, and I was crying about it. A policeman told me I better learn how to fight if I wanted to get my bike back." The dojo, was completely silent now. This wasn't going where anyone had expected. "So I learned to fight because I was afraid, because I was weak, because I got my bicycle stolen and didn't know what to do about it." Ali paused, studying Seagal's face. "I'm guessing you had your own bicycle stolen, so to speak." Seagal's carefully constructed persona seemed to crumble in real time. His shoulders sagged slightly, and when he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "They used to corner me after school, call me names, push me around." He looked at the floor. "I was tall but skinny, awkward, an easy target. And martial arts made you feel powerful," Ali said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, but somewhere along the way, feeling powerful became more important than being powerful. And being powerful became more important than being helpful." Master Chen, who had been watching this exchange with growing amazement, stepped forward. "In 40 years of teaching," Chen said quietly, "I have never heard anyone explain the difference so clearly." Ali turned to address the entire room. "What I did to Stephen just now wasn't about being stronger or faster. It was about understanding something he doesn't understand yet." "What's that?" Seagal asked. "The difference between fighting someone and fighting with someone." Ali gestured for Seagal to step closer. "When you grabbed for my wrist, you were trying to fight someone, to defeat me, to prove something. But I wasn't fighting you. I was fighting with your energy, your momentum, your expectations. That's what you felt." "I don't understand." "Stephen, you've spent years learning how to look like you're winning fights, but you never learned how to actually end them. Because ending a fight isn't about showing how tough you are. It's about understanding how scared your opponent is." Ali's voice grew stronger, more animated, as if the teaching was energizing him. "Every man who wants to hurt you is afraid of something, usually afraid of being hurt himself. If you fight his fear instead of fighting him, the fight ends before it starts. But in your movies," James Brown spoke up, "you're always throwing people around, breaking bones." "Because that's what people want to see," Seagal said, his voice heavy with something that might have been regret. "They want to see the little guy get big, the weak guy get strong, the scared guy become fearless." "But you're not fearless," Ali said gently. "You're still that scared 14-year-old. You've just built a very convincing performance around him." The truth of this statement seemed to hit Seagal like a physical blow. He sat down heavily on a nearby bench. "So what am I supposed to do with that?" he asked. "Teach people how to not be afraid," Ali said, "instead of teaching them how to look like they're not afraid." "How do you do that?" Ali smiled for the first time since the demonstration began. "You start by admitting you're afraid too." For the next hour, the planned demonstration turned into something completely different. Ali and Master Chen took turns explaining the philosophy behind martial arts, not the movie version, but the real practice of understanding conflict and resolving it with minimal harm. Seagal listened intently, asking questions like a student rather than trying to maintain his instructor persona. The Hollywood audience, who had come expecting entertainment, found themselves witnessing something far more valuable, an education in authentic strength. "Real power," Ali explained, "isn't about what you can do to someone else. It's about what you can do for someone else, including your opponent." "What do you mean?" asked one of the celebrities in the audience. "When I fought Joe Frazier, I wasn't trying to hurt Joe Frazier the person. I was trying to solve the problem of Joe Frazier the opponent. Big difference. One comes from anger, one comes from understanding." As the evening wound down, Seagal approached Ali privately. "I need to ask you something," Seagal said. When you did that thing to me, when I couldn't breathe right, was that real or was that psychological?" Ali considered the question carefully. "Does it matter? I think it does." "Why?" "Because if it was psychological, then everything I've been teaching is wrong. And if it was physical, then I need to learn whatever you did." Ali placed his trembling hand on Seagal's shoulder. "Stephen, what I did was listen to your body, your breathing, your balance. your tension. When you grabbed for me, you were holding your breath because you were nervous. When you're nervous, your body doesn't move the way it should. All I did was help you notice what you were already doing to yourself. So it was psychological. It was human, Ali said. You wanted to prove something so badly that you forgot to breathe properly. That's not a martial arts problem. That's a life problem. 6 months later, Steven Seagal quietly changed the focus of his martial arts teaching. While he continued making action movies, his contracts required it. He began incorporating Ali's philosophy into his instruction. He started teaching students not just how to execute techniques, but how to understand the fear and anger that made techniques necessary. In 1995, Seagal established a foundation that taught martial arts to at-risk youth, but with an emphasis on conflict resolution rather than combat prowess. The foundation's motto, suggested by Ali, was simple: strength is helping others find their strength. Master Chen, who had initially been skeptical of Seagal's Hollywood approach, became one of his strongest supporters. Steven learned something that took me decades to understand, Chen later said. The greatest victory is the fight you don't have to finish. When Muhammad Ali died in 2016, Steven Seagal was one of the speakers at his memorial service. His words were simple and heartfelt. Muhammad Ali taught me that being a tough guy and being a strong man are two completely different things. A tough guy beats people up. A strong man lifts people up. For 30 years, I tried to be a tough guy. Muhammad showed me how to be a strong man instead. Today, at Seagal's martial arts schools, there's a photograph on the wall showing Ali and Seagal shaking hands after that night in Beverly Hills. Below it is a quote from Ali: "The best fighter is someone who never has to fight because they help everyone around them win." Students often ask Seagal about that photograph, about the night the great Muhammad Ali came to their school. Seagal tells them the story exactly as it happened, including his own embarrassment and fear. But the most important part, he always adds, isn't that he could have beaten me up. It's that he chose not to. Real strength isn't about what you can do. It's about what you choose to do. And Muhammad Ali chose to teach me instead of defeating me. Because sometimes the greatest victories happen not when you prove you're stronger than your opponent, but when you prove your opponent is stronger than they knew. Muhammad Ali showed Steven Seagal that night that the difference between a fighter and a teacher is simple. Fighters tear people down to build themselves up. Teachers build people up because they're already strong enough. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do with your strength is help someone else discover theirs.